What's up, guys? It is March 1st, 2019. This thread is from earlier in the week. So it was an open Q&A. I'm a little behind this week, but I'm going to go ahead and get this done. Some pretty good questions on here, as always. We'll go ahead and jump in here on Facebook. And first one is, why does Tren suppress T3? Is it necessary to use T3 or T4 in cycle, or do OTC supplements for thyroid support work? I'm assuming is what he's asking. Okay, so first off, I'm not convinced that this is even an issue in anyone. I truthfully have not really seen any lab work that there's any significant impact, anything that's noteworthy. I know a lot of people just take T3 anyhow, and they don't ever actually check their free T3 levels when they use it, so they just assume they need it. There was actually a study. I remember, I believe the study's older, but it was something like 45% reduction in thyroxine or T4 in sheep using trenbolone, but I'm just not convinced that that actually translates into humans. Mechanisms by which TRH and TSH are stimulated are a little bit different, but some people do report that they see a higher TSH level when they use it, so that would indicate that the thyroid gland is working harder. But again, I haven't actually seen anything suggesting that free thyroid hormones are significantly lower to any extent that would require exogenous supplementation. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. Now, a lot of people will use, some people will see it in fat loss scenario, for example, but your thyroid's already probably going to be downregulated in that situation just because you are in a deficit and you're getting leaner, and all those metabolic adaptations are occurring anyhow. So that's not to say that it wouldn't have happened with or without the Tren in there. So, so no, I don't think that it's necessary. Like I said, outside of that fat loss situation that I mentioned, I haven't really seen anything that would tell me that it's necessary to take exogenous T3 with it. All right. Next one. Can you give your thoughts on TRT for a young guy, less than 25 years old, and the possible health implications? Well, I mean, TRT it's not really going to serve any other, there's not really going to be any other health implications that someone in normal physiological range of testosterone wouldn't already have. So assuming that you're staying within that range, then there shouldn't really be any additional any implications. A lot of people they'll run this TRT, at a little bit above range. Total test is 1200, 1500, things like that. And it's just simply not necessary. I was sent some literature at one point talking about increased risk of cardiovascular events with levels chronically above, I believe it was 900, for long term. So yeah, if you're going to do TRT, stay in normal physiological range. You don't need to be above that. You don't need to do 300 milligrams a week or 250, or even, a lot of people don't even need 200. A lot of people are more like in the 100 to 150 range, maybe 200 tops. But actually get your levels checked and stay in those normal, ranges if TRT is the purpose. So you wouldn't have a lot of additional implications. Now, do you see things like higher hematocrit and hemoglobin in TRT patients that are like right up in that top range all the time? I do usually see that. Not usually, but sometimes. So that might be something to keep an eye on. But if you want to know more about that, I actually talked about that in the last week's Q&A. We talked about hematocrit, hemoglobin, and just overall blood viscosity, donating blood, why that may or may not actually be beneficial, and talked about platelets and several things, and ferritin levels, and there's all kinds of stuff I discussed in there, so you can go back and check that out. But no, if you're staying in normal range and you're checking all your other health markers and everything's staying normal, it should be pretty much pretty much just like any other person in normal physiological range of testosterone. So, okay. Next one. Competition and shreds. Like everything, genetics dictate, but if you competed and had feathered quads and striated glutes running 7 grams of gear, realistic to expect the same or better running less. Excuse me. So I mean, as direct fat loss, I mean, there's not really a lot of direct fat loss benefits from AAS. I mean, some indirect, yeah, like there's certain compounds that could indirectly help potentially, but I mean, fat loss by and large is going to be your caloric deficit through nutrition, cardio, activity, things like that, and fat loss supplementation. So all the fat loss supplementation, like using the exogenous thyroid and clenbuterol and whatever else people want to use. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff's obviously going to contribute, but no, I mean, people can get in the same condition without it. Yeah, I mean, if someone's hypogonadal, then that might make it a little bit harder. But I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of natural bodybuilders out there that get peeled out of their mind that have no supplementation, that go into the contests with a total test of like 100 because they're hypogonadal from pushing their body so hard, and they get insanely peeled. So, I mean, there you go. There's your real world. If you don't even want to talk about science, I mean, there's your real world evidence right there that tells you that yeah, it doesn't require all the gear to get you in that kind of shape. But now, is it going to make you better? I mean, yeah, there's certain cosmetic benefits in terms of fullness and vascularity and hardness, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. But no, it's not going to dictate the condition. I mean, that's just really a matter of pushing hard enough to get, in that shape. It can definitely affect the overall look, roundness, fullness, hardness, like things like that, like I said, the cosmetic effect. But you could certainly run far less. And I've talked about this idea before. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but I've talked about the idea that the elevated hormone levels are going to be much better served in a hypertrophy scenario, like we're actually trying to grow muscle, because I mean that's what the compounds will help with. They aren't directly helping with fat loss, really. So the idea that you run tons and tons then, and then not as much outside of that, doesn't really make any sense. So, run the amount you need for the cosmetic effect and the muscle retention and performance retention and whatever. But it doesn't need to be 7 grams. I mean, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns as well, where you're just creating so much systemic stress from all of these, from all of this, your body trying to process all of this, that you're going to have additional inflammation and things like that, and you might actually just look worse. So, no. That would be the question. That would be the answer. What are the benefits of using exogenous insulin, both Humalog and Lantus, separate and together? Okay. And sorry, this keeps focusing in and out. I think it's my light in here is kind of throwing something off, but anywho, we'll proceed. So benefits. Well, I mean, there's benefits like potential health, I guess, quote unquote health benefits, potential benefits towards muscle growth, nutrient partitioning, all that stuff. And running it with growth hormone is going to make a big difference in terms of the muscle growth. Talk about that first a little bit. I've talked about that tons in other Q&As too, so you can reference back. But, we're talking about the IGF synergy there, IGF binding, autocrine, paracrine, IGF production, depending on how you're administering these things. So there's a muscle growth benefit there, and you really do need those two things in synergy, because not only for that aspect, but also for controlling blood sugar and preventing, getting diabetes from growth hormone. So yeah, there would be that. And then just the insulin on its own. I mean, you can give some assistance to the beta cells in the pancreas, that if you're using exogenous insulin and in a situation where you are potentially becoming insulin resistant. So even if you are or are not using growth hormone, you're just eating a lot, you're in a surplus, you've been in a surplus a long time, whatever it is, you can help keep blood sugar under control when your pancreas might not quite be able to keep up, which will save beta cell function some in the long run, and keep you healthier. So there's that benefit. Now, if you're looking at Lantus and Humalog, they are different. Probably the easiest way to think about this is you have Humalog or a Rapid is going to be a mealtime. That's going to help control postprandial glucose levels. So it's going to help with the production that happens at mealtime or right after mealtime that brings your levels back down to baseline. That's mostly, it's really just dictated by your pancreatic function. And then Lantus probably going to impact your fasting blood glucose a little bit more. Now, don't get me wrong, Lantus will reduce the burden at mealtime. It will reduce the need for, it can somewhat lower the need for the mealtime insulin, whether it be from your pancreas or supplemented, but it's a very long acting. It's probably going to see most of its impact on your fasting. Help control hepatic glucose output from your liver. So, like overnight, for example, when you're not eating, some people tend to overproduce glucose. They get like that dawn phenomenon where they have high fasting glucose. Lantus can help with that a lot. Just help with people that are in GH2 that have glucose being dumped constantly. Like, it's going to help control that, clean it up, keep it out of the blood, keep it, shuttling. So Lantus is kind of working in the background, I guess you could say. It also has a very high binding affinity as well compared to Rapids. So people say, use that with growth hormone. It can be more beneficial. Obviously, simplicity. It's very simple to use since it's long acting. But yeah, I mean, that would be some of the benefits of them, whether it's used with growth hormone or without. Or just on their own. You get some people that they'll also say, it's useless on its own, doesn't really produce hypertrophy, which is arguable. I get the stance, but at the same time, like if you can enhance partitioning and stave off high blood glucose levels for longer period, you're going to have a more successful growth phase, because you're probably going to not get fat as quick, and you're probably also going to be partitioning nutrients and having more productive workouts and digestion and things like that as well, because it does tend to help with hunger and appetite and those things. So so indirectly, it certainly is helping with muscle growth 100%. So yep, those would be some of the benefits. I mean, there's a lot of ways it can be used, but there's only certain combinations are definitely going to be more beneficial if you can use both with growth hormone and per whatever your blood glucose level is, and controlling that. I mean, you're really going to have a synergy there for sure. Okay. All right, guys. I think that's the last one for this week. And let me make sure. Double check here. Good. Sweet. All right. Thank you, guys. I'll talk to y'all next week.